Hey, everybody. Listen, thanks for joining me. I think this is going to be an amazing night. I have a great interview in store for y'all. I'm bringing on the author of Living with Conviction, okay, Unexpected Sisterhood, Healing and Redemption in the Wake of Life Altering Choices, okay? And the author name is Toby Dorr. And if you happen to watch Lifetime, there was a movie this past weekend, the holiday weekend, about her story on Lifetime. But Toby did not really authorize anything with that particular movie. So she's here to tell her story. I'm also going to be able to give away the book that I just showed you. I'm going to give it away to one of the subscribers that is in the chat. I just thought that, when you hear her story, I don't want to say too much myself because she's here to speak for herself. But this is a story for me, and I want y'all to really tune in and listen and be open to hearing this. This to me is letting us know this is something that Toby always says here. We are better than our worst mistakes. So some of us, we stay stuck with something that we did in the past and we can't get over it, right? Toby is here to tell her story and hopefully will help you become unstuck, come out of your own mental prison and just, live your life. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up Toby. How are
Hi,
you?
Cheryl. I'm excellent. Thanks so much for having me. I'm glad I have the gray hair.
I know, right?
Yeah,
We're kindred sisters here with
that's
our gray
right.
hair.
That's right.
Absolutely. Yes. So listen, we were talking and I just love the fact that you decided to share your story with the world. Sometimes, we're holding back and we're holding back. Everybody's saying hi to you there.
Hi.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys, for coming in, right? Sometimes, we don't release our story. We don't, tell it to the world, but sometimes our story can help others. So we'll start out. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so in I had a pretty boring, average, dull life for the first 48 years of my life. Um, I started a prison dog program after I was diagnosed with cancer and realized I wanted to do something to make a difference in the world. So I started a prison dog program, and about a year into the program, I fell in love with one of my dog handlers. There was a lot of things going on in my life at the time. My father was dying of cancer, and my sons had left home and were in college. And it was just becoming obvious to me that my husband and I were strangers. All we had in common were our sons, and they were gone. And I think, that's a pretty typical occurrence for a lot of homes to, the spouses grow apart. And when their children leave, there's just kind of a void there. So I was under a lot of pressure and feeling a lot of stress. And one of my inmates just noticed and simply asked, "What's going on with you, Toby? You seem really under a lot of pressure. What's going on in your life?" And it was just the fact of him noticing that, you know, changed everything. And so he thought, he asked me if I would be with him if I wasn't in prison, if he wasn't in prison, and I said I might, and that led to his whole idea of um, figuring out an escape plan. And so he hid in a dog crate that was in my van, and I drove out from a dog adoption, and we escaped. So
Yes, y'all escaped. So let's back up a little bit and let's talk about how you even implemented this dog program, the therapy dog program within the prison, because it's not easy for a lay person to even get in a prison and start any type of program.
that's right. So I came in as a volunteer, and I spent a lot of time in the prison. I was really, committed to making my dog program work, and I loved how having the dogs in the prison softened the whole environment. You know, as humans, we crave a connection. We crave being loved by someone. And most of these men had been in prison for decades. And
Mm.
if they weren't lucky enough to have visits, they never even had been able to hug anyone for years. And so when you put a dog in the prison, all of a sudden everything changes, because now these men have something they can love and something they can confide in and something to care about and a purpose in their day. And it just made such a difference in the prison, and that was a beautiful thing, really.
Thank you for that. So does this program still exist to this day, or after everything happened, they abolished the program?
No, they did continue it. There were a couple of officers who volunteered to take over the program and run it. So they did continue it. And I think about a year ago, they all retired the program. So it continued for 15 years after the escape.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, so
Yes, I was
that's
really
a
proud of
that's
that.
a good that's a
Hmm.
good thing. So we'll go back to you. You started your program. You at home. You were married at the time,
Yes.
but
Hmm.
there was a lost connection between you and your husband. I guess I use those particular words.
Yes.
So now you have John. He's part of the program.
Hmm.
He's paying attention to you, and then this plan comes up like, okay, we're going to break you out of here. um and
It seemed
so
like a game at first. For a long time, he'd say, "How about this idea?" And I'd say, "That won't work because of this thing." And to me, it felt kind of like a game. And then all of a sudden, we had a plan that seemed like it could work. And then the day came, and the dog crate was put into my van, and I was still, kind of dumbfounded that this was even going to work. And it did.
it did. So leading up to that day, you're driving there knowing that this is going to happen. This is what
Mhm.
y'all going to do. Were you nervous? Did you think like, no, I'm gonna just turn around, I'm not gonna do this?
I was terrified, and I was certain that one of the officers or one of my dog handlers would notice a difference in me, uh, and no one did. But I tried really hard to play the part and to be careful about what I was doing. But underneath, there was just this uh, angst and this. Uh, and what it was excitement too, because this what kind of was an exciting thing, but it was also some fear and some concern about what will happen if it doesn't come out right. What's going to happen. And um, it seemed like everything came together just to make it the perfect day, because it was so cold. It was February and nobody wanted to be outside. It was a below zero wind chill and it was snowing.
Wow.
So, the weather was perfect. Nobody wanted to hang around outside and pay attention to what was going on. They just wanted to load the dogs in the van and get back to their rooms. So the weather was a big factor too.
Okay. So now, I don't know if you can answer this, but the people that loaded, what they thought were all dogs into the
Mhm.
van, um, did they know or they did not know that John was in one of the crates?
I was not let in on that part of the plan. John,
Okay.
kept all that to himself. Um, so he told me that no one knew. It's possible that someone did, but I don't have any information about that.
That's fair enough. Okay,
Mhm.
wonderful. So I do know, like according to the movie, I don't know if you know this, he beforehand started to try to lose a lot of weight in
Mhm.
order to be able to fit in, I think initially what a box, but then he ended up in a crate. Was that
Well,
true?
There was a wire dog crate. So in the movie, they used a plastic dog crate, and that
Yes.
wasn't really accurate. It was one of those wire dog crates. And of course, you can see right into the wire dog crate. So there was a box inside the wire dog crate, and he had to fit himself into that box. And he's
Wow.
6'4". He's a tall guy. He was skinny to begin with, but he lost 25 pounds to be able to fit in the box. And he had to pull one leg up over his shoulder and put one leg behind him. And, it was really a contortion to fit in that box.
Wow, that is so he really wanted to get out. So I'm gonna ask this, when you met him and he started to handle the dogs and he was good with the dogs and eventually he kind of told you what he was in there for. Did that scare you in any way?
Well, it didn't scare me because he was in prison. I mean, he was convicted of first-degree murder, but it was felony murder. So he never killed anyone. He was committing a crime. They were stealing a car. There happened to be someone in the car. They didn't know that at the time. And his
Mm,
buddy that was with him shot the guy that was in the car. So, I felt like even though John was doing a life sentence for murder, he had not killed anyone. So that made it a little bit more palatable in my book. So
okay,
someone asked if he how much time he had left. He was serving a life sentence. So
okay.
he you know, someday perhaps someone can get paroled, but chances are probably not.
Probably not, right? And that led me to the thought process of, and then we're going to get to the part where, once y'all leave and he's in this crate. But that kind of gave me a thought process of like, you know what, in my mind, he had nothing to lose, but you
That's
had
right.
everything to lose.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yes.
Yeah. So it is to me, I thought, even though I know like he, at least in the movie, like kind of confessed his love to the
Mhm.
bitter end and kind
Mhm.
of thereafter almost it seemed like still I could not let go of the thought process in my head that no matter how this thing ended up, he wasn't going to lose anyway.
That's true. He wasn't going to lose because he wasn't going to get out of prison, but his time has been harder after the escape because now he
Mm.
can't be in any kind of programs. And he spent 9 years in solitary confinement after the escape. So, his time was a lot tougher after
Yeah.
that.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a
Mhm.
lot. And we're gonna we'll get to that because I think when I was listening to the Audible, and matter of fact, I'm gonna interject and put this in there really quick right now, everyone. You can get the book on Amazon. You can get the book if you have a local Barnes and Noble in your neighborhood. I also dropped the book on Audible. Like if you like to listen to the book, you can also get the book on, Audible. So in so many ways, it's an amazing book. I read it and I watched the movie. I think you're gonna absolutely love, love, love the book. And I can't remember, Toby, because I just got off of my Amazon. How much is the book? We might as well tell them that
I
right now.
I think the paperback's 19.99 and I think the hardback's 29.99 and the Audible book, if you have Audible, of course you can get it as one of your credits with Audible,
Mhm.
but I think the audio book price is something around 17.50.
Yes, yeah. So
$17.50,
it's
I
well
think.
worth it, guys. Definitely well worth it. And matter of fact, I may get the hard copy so I can keep it in my collection. So yes, it's definitely a good book. So now take us to the moment where okay, he's the truck is loaded, the van is loaded. They close it up, because I
Mhm.
also now this what I did not know. Like I found out a lot of interesting things. So I guess normally when I guess deliveries come in and out of the jail, they check for a heartbeat.
Yes, there's a machine. There's this area out. So there's a set of three gates you have to drive through to get into the prison, and in
Okay.
between the second gate and the first gate, there's this machine that looks like a car wash, a drive-through car wash, and you drive your vehicle in there, and you get out of your vehicle, and it surrounds the whole vehicle with some kind of a sonic something, and they detect heartbeats in there. I never had to do that because, of course, I always had dogs in my van and dogs
So
had
good.
heartbeats. So I was excused from driving through the heartbeat monitor.
Wow. So that was the first I ever heard of it. Like I was like, oh, they have where they could check for heartbeat. So
Yes,
that's interesting. So
yes.
again, I guess, a piece why y'all was able to kind of get away with that.
Mhm.
So now take us through he's in the van, and you're driving off. Take us from that point.
So I was parked between gates 2 and 3, and the inmates were behind gate 3, and they opened gate 3 and we put the dogs in the van. Then they closed gate 3, and then gate 2 opens, and I drive out into this bigger area of the prison where the heartbeat monitor is. And you wait for gate 1 to open. And while I was driving across that parking lot, I just knew the sirens were going to blow. They have a steam whistle at almost every prison. And if there's an escape, they blow the steam whistle. It sounds like a train whistle. And I
Okay.
was waiting for that whistle and waiting, and it never went off. And so gate 1 opened, and I pulled out of the prison and I drove up the prison road. And when I got onto the city road, I turned a corner and the prison was out of sight. And I had said, when I drove out, I said, John, are you in there? And there was no answer. And so I thought, oh, he didn't come after all. So I guess I'll just go to a dog adoption like a normal day, and part of me
Hmm.
was relieved, like, oh, I don't have to, this isn't going to happen, and I'll just, stay stuck in my life, which is comfortable. And but then when we turned the corner onto the city street, this arm bust out through the box. And John just had this manic laugh. And I pulled the van over. It just startled me. And I was pulled the van over and I thought, oh my gosh, what have we done? I can't undo this. And John said, drive, baby, drive. And so I drove.
You drove, but
Mhm.
we'll tell a little bit too about the story is that y'all did, like, you did sneak a cell phone into him at one
I
point.
did that.
Um,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So while he was in prison, about maybe 3 weeks before the escape, you can't really talk in prison because you're always surrounded, you're always watched. And you certainly couldn't hold hands or hug or anything like that because, it's forbidden, and you
Hmm.
don't want anybody to catch on that you're interested in someone. So we had hardly any opportunities really to talk. And he said, if I had a cell phone in here, we could talk all the time, and you wouldn't even have to come in here as much because we'd be talking on the phone. And so, it'd just be easier because one of these days somebody's going to notice if you're in here all the time. So he said, I can get a cell phone in here, but it's going to cost $500. And I said, I'm not going to give you $500 for a cell phone. That's ridiculous. And then, we talked more and talked more and talked more. And then I said, okay, I'll just bring one in, you know, and I just put it in a dog crate that I put a little dog in, and I just carried the dog crate in and handed him the crate and said, here's your new dog. And there was a cell phone in the dog crate with the dog. And then
Wow.
we talked on the phone for 1,200 minutes in that 1 month. 1,200 minutes, and we were just on the phone constantly. And that's when our relationship really turned the corner, because now we can have these conversations that were forbidden before. And
Right.
it just made it possible to really connect at a deeper level.
Yeah. All right. I just wanted everybody to add that in, because was it true that he is the one that booked the cabin that y'all were going to escape to?
He did. That's right. He found it. I don't know how he found it, but he called the cabin and booked it for a month. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
Mhm.
did you ever think though to yourself, like, did you say to yourself, like, you just thought y'all was never going to get caught? Like, this was all going to be good? Or did you think that far?
I didn't think that far ahead, but I personally always saw myself as coming back home. I never saw myself being gone forever, but I didn't know how long I'd be gone, and I didn't know what it would look like when I came back home. Um, but we thought that we wouldn't get caught because we planned everything pretty carefully. But in today's world, there's cameras everywhere, and they track. They had cameras in the Walmart when I bought clothes to fit him, like 2 weeks before the escape. They must have gone and checked every store in the whole Kansas City area to be able to find that, because It wasn't even a Walmart near where I lived. So,
Wow.
they find things. So the nothing is hidden anymore today.
That is so true. And somebody said you wasn't scared at all.
I was excited. I probably there was a lot of scared in there, but I didn't let myself feel that. Now, after we were gone for a while, uh, the paranoia that you feel when you're on the
Mm,
run and people are looking for you. I mean, you're always looking over your shoulder and thinking, did someone notice me? Did they see me? Did they look at me too long? Yeah, it's just crazy, the paranoia, and it really wears down on you.
yeah, I'm sure it does. So you got out, at least you got out to jail.
Hmm.
You make it to this cabin. But I was wondering too, like what's gonna happen of the dogs, but you dropped the dogs off at your
Drop
house.
the dogs off at my house. That's right. And I didn't take that many dogs that day either. I was going to just do a small adoption. I think I only took 5 dogs. And I
Okay.
was able to take them to my house and leave them at my house. So the dogs were taken care of.
Okay, yes, I saw that you dropped the dogs off. And
Mhm.
someone asked, what year did this happen?
2006. It's been 16 years ago.
Wow, okay. So it's been 16 years. So you dropped the dogs off. What was the need? Is this part true? Because this came from the movie. What was the need to stop at the storage place?
I had bought a getaway truck and I parked it in the storage unit and I had it packed with food and clothes and things. And so
Oh,
we didn't want to take the prison dog van, on the escape because it said Safe Harbor prison dog van on
right.
the side. So we left that van in the storage unit and got into the truck that I'd bought, which is
Okay.
actually how we got caught because I bought that truck and I knew we needed to get a license for it. So I had him send the title to the cabin where we were staying. I used a
Yeah.
fake name, but they see through everything these
Yeah,
days.
they
So,
do see through. They do see through everything.
so I
Yes.
let him write to us.
Yeah.
I wasn't a very good criminal, it turns out.
But speak a little bit before that because it's interesting. You said, before that is kind of like you was living, for lack of a better word, kind of the perfect life. You never had a traffic ticket, right?
Right.
Never broke a law.
Mm-hmm.
Um, kind of was the perfect citizen for all intent purposes, right?
Mhm. I had a corporate management job. I, had a college degree. My husband was a fire captain, and our sons were both in college. And to the whole world, it looked like it was just the perfect life. And that's what I wanted to believe it was too. But the reality is that I was not happy and I was not fulfilled, and I'd been unhappy, I think, for decades, really. And if something hadn't happened to, jolt me out of my middle class boringness, I probably would still be there today.
Yeah. Did you ever, like, prior to all of this happening, did you ever try to speak to your husband and say, like, at your husband at the time and say, like, I just feel like I need something different. Like I feel,
I did.
lost.
Like
Mhm.
10 years before the escape, I told him I wasn't happy and I think that I wanted to get a divorce. And he said, "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. No judge in this county will give you a divorce because I've never hit you and I work and I don't drink." And he said, "But most of all, your parents wouldn't let you divorce me." And I thought, yeah, that's true. My parents would be an obstacle. And I, I knew I wasn't strong enough to stand up to him at that time. So
Understood.
we just
Yeah.
went on.
Yeah. So now take us, y'all escaped,
Hmm.
y'all kind of out, you get to this cabin and just, you don't have to tell us everything that happened at the cabin, but like, where do we go from there? Like, what point is this? Because it's like it was 12 days, 12
It was
days that
right. It was
turned your
12
life
days.
around.
So, the best part of John and I's relationship was the physical part. I mean, we were just crazy in love with each other and couldn't get enough of each other. And that part was beautiful.
Okay.
Um, but there was a 21-year age difference. He was
Mm.
21 years younger than me, and that caused a problem. It he just really was a lot more immature than
Okay.
I was, and that was kind of aggravating to deal with at times. And there were other things. So, like when you normally have a relationship with someone, you build that relationship over time and you go out on dates, and you kiss and you hug and you build up your relationship. We didn't have any of that. We just had talking on the cell phone and, walks in the dog yard with the dogs. And John was in this environment of being in prison. So he was really confined in his personality and confined in the things that he was able to do. And the euphoria of being out of prison, just kind of like turned him into this little kid that just wanted to do everything and see the world and go to the movies and, live life, which I don't blame him, because those 12 days really were the only life that he has to look back on, because he went to prison when he was 17. So
Wow.
he really had no experiences of being an adult other than those 12 days. And I think, being put together in this cabin and you're alone and you really can't talk to anyone else, you can't confide in anyone else because the whole world's looking for you. And that pressure it creates such an artificial environment and such an artificial relationship. And our relationship just didn't get to develop and build a solid foundation. It just ignited, into a flame. And I think, flames just can't burn forever. So
Mm.
I think there would have come a time when I would have been tired. I wasn't quite there yet, but I think there would have come a time where I would have felt like I needed to get away.
Right. Understood. Right. And like you said, it was a great romance. It was almost
Yes,
like microwaves on speed, and y'all
that's
had a lot
right.
of talk
That's right.
time. And
Uh-huh.
then boom, you was out, and it's like, okay, this thing is real. Here it is.
Hmm.
So we'll jump to the part where the day where you're out, and you actually like you get caught that day.
Hmm.
So tell us a little bit about that day.
So we went to go into Chattanooga, which was about a 2-hour drive from the cabin. And we stopped at a bookstore and we were walking through the parking lot. The marshals had been to our cabin that day. We didn't know it. We weren't there. And were they set up an office in Chattanooga. Now I don't know why they picked Chattanooga, because it was a couple hours drive away and it just happened to be where we were that day.
That day.
And we walked in front of their car. They were sitting in their car strategizing about what their next move was going to be and how they were going to approach the cabin the next day. And we walked right in front of them and got into our truck, and they followed us onto the interstate, and they, called ahead and they set up this trap. So about an hour and a half down the highway from Chattanooga, we came up over a hill, and there were 50 or 60 police cars on the interstate in
Wow.
front of us. The whole interstate was filled with police cars, and they had blocked the ramps to keep people from getting on the highway. And then there was a helicopter over us, just with a light on our vehicle. And John asked me what we should do, and I said, "Well, I think we're just going to need to pull over. I mean, what
Mhm.
what else can you do?" And just then a police officer sped up around our truck and cut in front of us and slammed on their brakes because they wanted us to rear end them and stop. And it made John mad. And he said, "I'm not stopping now. We're just going to run until we run out of gas." And
Mm.
I looked over at the gas tank and we had 3/4 of a tank. And I thought, I can't do this. But then I went into this really weird time warp, and everything was slow motion, and I couldn't hear any sound. I couldn't hear John talking. I couldn't hear the sirens. But we sped down that highway 100 miles an hour, they told us later. And he wove in between the police cars and off on the shoulder. And then finally he lost control of the truck, and we hit a tree head on. And that was the end. They pulled him out, or he got out the driver's door, and they pulled me out the passenger door, and they put him in one police car and me in another, and that was it. We were gone, and we never even got to say goodbye. I mean, we just like ripped apart and put in two different places, and that was it. So you didn't really get to have closure. You just still, and for the whole 2 years I was in prison, I just yearned for him still. I was so madly in love with him and I just couldn't let go of that. And I eventually worked through and was able to realize I needed to let go and move on. But that was, it was such, the whole thing about our relationship was so artificial. It started in a non-normal way.
Mhm.
It lived in a non-normal environment and it ended just so abruptly. It just was a cataclysmic almost.
Yeah. I mean, y'all crashed into a tree. Like, God bless that y'all survived that. Like, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
And I wanted to die in the crash. I even prayed, dear God, please just let me die when we hit this tree because I can't face this. And I got the wind knocked out of me. And I think I might have had a concussion, but that was it. No broken bones, no stitches. So I realized later that, there must be a purpose for me. There must be
Hmm.
something I need to do. And I learned later that what I needed to do was to be able to tell my story so that I could inspire other women that when they need to make a change in their life and they need to rebuild and they feel like they've destroyed their life, it's possible to come back from anything.
I love that. It's possible to come back from anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is. If God has saved you and you're still here, it is possible to come back from anything. And that's why I wanted you to really tell your story. So now, like, even though I don't know, I feel like me, I would have been like, oh my God, why did I do this at this point? When the cops are like there and the helicopters
Uh-huh.
above me, and now they're arresting you. Like, what was you thinking when they was like when they put you under arrest there?
I was just I was like in this fog and I think, that's why I think maybe I had a concussion because I wasn't really registering. It could have just been the emotional trauma of the moment too, but I just couldn't process, what are we doing? Now why are we doing this? Now where are we going? Now what's going to happen? It just didn't make sense to me, and John had always said, if we get caught, I'll tell them that I kidnapped you and they're not going to send you to prison or jail because they don't send people like you to prison or jail. Well, they do. And they did.
Now, I forgot to ask you this before y'all got caught. Did you see yourself on news and the TV that they were looking for y'all?
No, because John never let us turn on the TV. And, he said later it was because he knew we'd be on the news and he didn't want to freak me out. I did open
Mm.
my laptop at one time when we were in Nashville, and the headline popped up that said, Dog lady implicated in escape. And it freaked me out. And I said, John, they know I was in on it. You told me they wouldn't know. And here I am. And, you know, that was the only news article I ever saw. And I never even read the article. I just got to see the headline because he slammed my computer shut and said, we're not looking at the news. So,
Okay. Listen, it probably helped you survive through those 12 days because I
yes,
think it probably would have freaked you out if you
I
started
think it would
looking.
have. I think it would
Mhm.
have. Hmm.
Definitely. So now we're here at the point, y'all caught, you get arrested. Now kind of the whole world knows, your family knows about everything that, that happened and that you're doing. Thank you so much, Nancy. Hey, Diva, this interview is amazing. Thank you, Toby. So they're enjoying your interview.
I'm glad.
Truly appreciate it. Yes. So we're at the point where now and like the world knows and your family knows. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
It was so embarrassing. I'm like this Miss Pris perfect little Catholic girl. And now all of a sudden, the black satin sheets that we had on our bed are all over the news, and I just, oh gosh, I just wanted to cringe because it was so embarrassing. All your most personal, private things are now public knowledge. And that was really difficult for me. I wanted to just hide. And and I was so embarrassed that my mom and dad were reading that stuff, and
Yeah.
you have this feeling, that your parents don't even know you have sex even when you're married, just because it just, it just doesn't seem like something you talk about. And now here that's all over the newspaper and the news in the jail. And it was so embarrassing. I was just mortified.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. Um, the part that I love the fact that your parents really stood by your
They
side.
did. Yes, they
Um,
did.
your mom is amazing. Like, I
My
mean,
mom is the most awesome woman in the world. Yes, she is. Was.
yeah,
Hmm.
yes, she was. So, I mean, just to let you know, like, keep your head up, so to speak.
Yes.
Don't,
Uh-huh.
yeah, don't let, what anyone's saying in the news or what anybody's saying about you, like, get you down.
That's
So,
right. Yeah, and they just kept telling me, you will get through this and we'll be here with you to help you get through it. You can do anything. You just have to do it. You're just going to have to put your head down and get through it.
and I love that part in the book. And I'm going to tell you why, because I think so many people, unfortunately, that are in the system, they don't have support like that. Like,
They
everybody
don't.
doesn't have that support.
And that's
Yeah.
a difference maker. That's really a difference maker, because I don't care what people try to tell you. There is no rehabilitation or encouragement to grow inside of prison. I
Mm.
was in 5 different facilities during my 27 months, and nowhere was there any kind of a program to help women find their way out of the hole they were in, or learn a new skill, even. It just didn't happen. So you really have to pick yourself up and pull yourself through it. And if you have someone on the outside who holds your hand and is there for you, it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, I can totally believe that. So, your family, you had your mom and dad that was standing by you,
Mhm.
which was an amazing thing. And, if, however much you want to talk about, like, how did your sons and how did your ex-husband kind of handle this situation?
Well, my ex husband only talked to me once, and it was the day I was out on bond just before I was sentenced. And he came to visit me at my mother's, and he screamed at me about how I had embarrassed him, and and we got an emergency divorce. So
Okay.
we did get divorced, and we have not spoken since. My sons, I had 2 sons, and they didn't speak to me either. But their dad told them that they could have a relationship with him or with me, but not both. And
Mm.
so it was a difficult situation, and I, my youngest son died a year after I got out of prison. He died of cancer. And
Wow.
that was really traumatic. And I did come to see him before he died, and told him I loved him, but we really didn't get to reconnect and heal our relationship before that. And my oldest son, we still don't have a relationship today. So,
Yeah.
but I did
Well,
remarry, and my husband has a son who has children. So I am a grandma after all.
well, congratulations on
Yeah.
being a grandma, and my condolences in reference to like your son, especially like 1 year after you got out. And you know what, your other son, you know, time can heal all wounds. So we're gonna pray that he
Yeah.
comes around.
That
We're
would be
gonna
good.
pray that he comes
Yep.
around,
Yep.
because I think maybe as he sees that you are here, I'm convinced, I really am, that your story is going to help a lot of people.
Mhm.
A lot of people sit in shame, and that's what further depresses them. Um, and when they see someone else has the courage to tell their story, maybe they will tell their story, right?
Yes.
And then it will help release some of that shame.
And
So, but
telling your story is
mhm,
healing. When you can speak up and own your story, and when you feel like you have to hide your story because you're embarrassed of it, that just adds to I call it the shame dragon. It just gives that shame dragon more power. But when you can stand up and own your story and say, yes, this is what I did, it wasn't a great idea, but I've overcome it. And this is where I am today. Um, I think when you can tell your story, that helps you work through the healing process.
Yeah, I think it does also. So now we know that, you got arrested.
Mhm.
You're like a big headline thing going on.
Yes, yes.
What do you call it? News people or the
Mhm.
reporters are
The
like on
media.
the
Mhm.
media, right? They're all over
Yes,
your family's house. They're everywhere. They're
that's right.
reporting you. Um,
Mhm.
when you realize how much the media was trying to cover this, and they labeled you the dog crate lady. Am I
That's
right?
right. That's what they call me. Yeah, the
Yes,
dog lady or the dog crate lady. Yeah,
yes. How
that's
did
my
you
name.
feel about that?
I didn't mind being the dog lady because my whole life I've been rescuing dogs and I love dogs. So I didn't mind being the dog lady. Now the dog crate lady just refers to the escape and I don't like being known just for that one thing that was maybe the worst mistake I made because there's so much more to me than that.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And the fact that you started that program and it lasted 15 years after,
Mhm.
and there's some things you did while you were in prison and some, relationships that you made while you were there.
Yes.
I kind of want you to talk a little bit about your time, and just talk a little bit on how maybe, we all need to advocate for some different things within the prison system. So talk about
Yes.
that.
Yes. So one thing I noticed when I first got to prison to the jail, I asked them if they had any books and they brought in this cart and it had like maybe 10 books on it. So I decided, I could write letters to people I knew and ask if they donate books. And we ended up getting a whole room full of books. So one thing people can do is just donate their used paperback books to the local jail because jails don't buy books and there's nothing for people to do when you're in there. So that's one thing that I advocate for. Um, when I was in jail, I we didn't have anything on the commissary that we had ramen noodles and chips and soda and we were hungry all the time and we just wanted to have a jar of peanut butter or something more filling on the commissary and we all of us women in the women's pod got together and advocated and wrote requests and just wrote them every single day until finally the prison administrator came to us and said, "What's it going to take to make you women happy?" And we said, "We want hand lotion, we want dental floss, we want Q-tips, we want chapstick, we want peanut butter." And we got most of those things. So, I think that I feel proud that I was able to show those women that they can stand up for themselves and that there's a strength in numbers. And if everyone gets together and we all ask for something, that we can make change happen, even in just a small way.
Okay, so let me just some a couple questions. So Nancy said, do people still judge you over this situation?
They do. So,
Really?
since I've gotten out of prison, I've gotten 2 master's degrees, and I created a series of workbooks for women to help them rebuild their lives. And I've written this memoir, and I've talked to women's groups. I've mentored women who've gotten out of prison and helped them get their children back and help them find jobs and write resumes. I mean, I've done a lot of things. And even so, just yet this week, just yesterday, I had someone on social media say, "How dare you think anyone wants to hear your story? You're nothing but a criminal." And still, after all this work and all this healing that I've done, when I get one of those messages, for a moment, it still makes me feel like, well, I really am worthless. I should just go stand in a corner. And then it's like, no, that's not true. I am so much more than that one thing that I did 16 years ago. I have done all these other things and they matter too. So, yes, people still do judge me. That happened in the state
Wow.
of Kansas, is when our escape was.
Okay, so in the state of Kansas, that
Hmm.
is interesting how people still to this day want to
Hmm.
judge you. And that's another reason why I wanted to really do this interview, because I have nothing but respect for you to even like be brave enough to write your story, tell your story,
Hmm.
and to just admit, like, yes, I was in love with this man, right?
Hmm.
I was in love with him. It happened, but I picked myself up after this. So
Yes,
you were sentenced to 27 months.
that's right.
I think I saw early in the chat someone was like, "Oh, you were lucky." But keep in mind, everyone, that yes, Toby pretty much had a clean slate before
And
this
that
even
makes a big
happened.
difference, right?
Yes, it does, right?
I
Go ahead.
got the maximum sentence they could give me in the sentencing guidelines.
Right.
So, you know, and 27 months, I believe, was the exact right time for me. I think 21 months wouldn't have been enough time. I don't think I was ready to come out into the world because I used that time in healing. That was kind of my cocoon where I could rebuild my life and find myself and gather the strength to be able to come out and face the world. And I needed 27 months. So I feel blessed that that was my sentence. If I had gotten longer than 27 months, I think I would have started degrading and becoming more institutionalized and angry. And so, that would have been too long. And
Yeah.
we are a country that loves to throw people in prison. We
Yes.
have, in the United States, we have 4 to 5% of the world's population, less than 5%. We have 25% of the world's incarcerated population. We are a country that throws people in prison all the time when really a better benefit in a lot of cases would be to put them into some kind of a program or some kind of a shelter or some kind of a halfway house and avoid prison because prison doesn't really make you a better person.
It doesn't. It
Mhm.
doesn't. And then everybody doesn't have a life sentence. So we want these people to be prepared to integrate back into life after prison. But how
Mhm.
can you do that when you dehumanize them while
That's
they're
right.
in the prison?
Mhm.
It's just not fair. I have been searching for a purpose for when I retire. I think Toby just gave me one. Thanks, Toby. Oh
Oh,
my
I love to hear
God.
that. That's awesome. Yeah,
Oh, thanks, Miss Gigi. Thank you for that. Yeah, so it's like we really have to think about these things. It's like, you want to treat a person one way in prison, but then when they come out, you want them to not go back in, but you don't set them up for success.
that's
Um,
right.
I don't know. Okay, so you do your 27 months. Was any time while you was doing that 27 months, is any time period in there, did you just like almost lose yourself and say, I can't do this?
Yes. So there was a time, and it was about 21 months into my sentence. But the Wall Street Journal did a front page article about me. And that was about the escape. And they interviewed John too. They interviewed both of us. And I thought it was a great article. And I really felt that the writer had really gotten our story right. And my sisters were so angry at me for doing that story. And
Hmm.
I still don't know why. But I mean, they don't talk to me either, but um, they're embarrassed by my actions because they feel like I embarrassed the whole family. And
Mm.
16 years later, they're still not over it. And they were so condemning after that story came out that I realized that they really wanted me to die in that car crash, that it would have been better for them if I had. And so I started trying to think of ways I could kill myself because I felt like it would be doing my sisters a favor. And I ended up on suicide watch. And that was my lowest point. And, I just prayed to God to let me die because I couldn't face this. And that was the first day. And the second day, I started thinking about my parents and how much they loved me. And it would be so hurtful to them if I did kill myself. And then on the third day, God came into my cell and told me, you were right to tell your story. And I'm going to be right here with you. You're going to get through this. And when you get out of prison, I want you to tell your story because your story will change the lives of other women. And so
Wow.
that's what I've been doing. I feel like I was given a commandment, a directive. And so, who wants to be the one that lets God down? Not me.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. And I'm so glad that you had the courage and just to do it. And I'm
Mhm.
glad that God spoke to you,
Oh,
because yes, your story is definitely going to change and save a lot of people. So, it's always heart-wrenching too to just think that after all of this time still that your sisters, just can't find forgiveness and a way to like forgive you. Um, and I hope they come around also.
I hope they do too, because you know what? For their sakes, I do, because you you can't. That's no way for them to feel either. They need to forgive so they can move on and rebuild their lives too.
Yes, yes. You know what they say? Forgiveness is not for yourself. I mean,
That's right.
it's for yourself and not really the other person,
That's right.
right?
The forgiveness is
Yeah.
for the forgiver. Hmm.
Yes.
That's who
Yes.
it really benefits. That's right.
That's
Yeah.
what really benefits. So yes. So we talked about, your time, in the prison just a little bit. One more thing I want to speak about on that or ask you about on that, and then we'll move to the next point is like in there, physically in there, and when they're like locking this door and like once you have to go and they have to close the gate on, for your room or, your
Mhm.
cell or whatever the case
Mhm.
may be. What was that like?
There is no sound that is more foreboding than the sound of a prison door shutting.
Mm,
It's not a quiet sound, and it's a sound all of its own. I've never heard that sound anywhere else, but the sound of that prison door shutting just, it just grips you. You just know, huh, I'm this is where I am, and there's nothing I can do about it.
wow.
Mhm.
Whew. All right. So we're going to move past that. And, you had your time, you did your time. And now let's move where you're actually getting out. The day comes where it's like, okay, it's your time. You can get out now.
Yes, I was so excited for my release day, and it was the same day as my youngest son's birthday, so I thought that was a good omen. And at this time, I was in a federal prison in Houston, and my home was in Kansas City. So they just call you down to the office and they have you change into regular clothes, and you walk out the door with your box of stuff, and they say, you need to get to the bus station. There's a ticket waiting for you at the bus station, and your bus leaves in 20 minutes. And it's like, how do I get to the bus station? I just stood out there, and I went back in, and they're like, you can't come in here. You can't come in this door. What are you doing? And I said, well, I don't know how to get to the bus station. They said, just go stand out there and wait for a taxi. And I was like, am I supposed to flag a taxi down? I don't know how to do that. I've never ridden in a taxi. We don't have do taxis in Kansas City that much. Uh, and they said, just go outside and wait, and a taxi eventually came, and I kind of put together that they called a taxi, but they never told me, we've called a taxi for you. Just wait for it. So I was just terrified I was going to miss this bus, because they said, we're going to check with the bus station. And if you're not on that bus at the time it leaves, that's a violation of your probation. And we're going to put out a warrant for your arrest. And it's
Oh my
like, oh my
God.
gosh, I can't even get out of town. It was terrifying. But then that whole bus ride home, it was a 15-hour bus ride, and it was just so beautiful to just sit and watch the world go by, the real world. You see people in the front yard of their homes or on their front porches, or you see people walking down the street, and it's just like, wow, this is the real world, and I'm finally back in it.
Wow. Wow. So they just put you out there. They're like, listen, go catch the bus. So when you got out, you were still on probation. You still had to report
Yes,
to a probation
2 years
officer.
of probation. Uh-huh.
Oh, so you had to do 27 months and then 2 years of probation.
Yes. Hmm.
Wow. Okay. And so what was it like for you doing that probation?
The probation for me was really easy, because um I think everybody knew that I really wasn't a criminal. And so any of the requirements they had for you to follow were things I do anyway. So, they would take a urine test, and I've never been drunk in my life. I still to this day, and I've never tried drugs. So I've never smoked a cigarette. So, all the rules they give you were not difficult for me to follow. And then
Okay.
they got to the point where I could just call them on the phone and say, here I am, I'm doing okay. And they kind of waved that I had to come in and visit them after a while because they kind of knew I was doing all right.
You was doing okay.
But
All
there
right.
were things you couldn't do, like you couldn't leave the state without written permission. So, I lived on the border of Kansas City, was right on the border of Kansas and Missouri, but you kind of got to have this permission if you want to drive 2 hours to visit your friend who lives in Missouri and you're in Kansas. So there were just a lot of
Wow.
rules you had to follow that still didn't quite let you be completely free.
Okay. Did you have to be at home at a certain time also?
No, I didn't. I
Okay.
didn't have to. Now, um, I think when you go to a halfway house or something like that, there's a lot more rules about that. And some types of probation, they do want you to be able to check in at a certain time, but I never did have to do that.
That's wonderful. And so what additional time did John go through harsher punishment? I mean, I know he was already in there for life when he broke out, but did he get harsher punishment?
Yeah, he was in solitary confinement for 9 years after the escape, which is a
Mm,
long time. You're locked in a room by yourself for 23 hours a day, and they let you go out into a yard. And the yard for the solitary confinement looks like a dog pen, a chain link dog pen with a
oh
top on it.
my
And you
God.
get to just walk around in that small little pen for an hour a day. Um, he was serving a life sentence, and then they added 20 years to his life sentence. So if he ever gets paroled from his life sentence, then he still has to serve the 20 years for the escape.
Oh my God. I mean, I think lot what is that? What did you call that? Where you in that's like inhumane. Like
It
that is
is. It
insane.
is.
That
Yeah.
is insane. It's like
Mhm.
crazy. It's almost like they want you to go crazy. Who can be locked away by themselves for 23 hours?
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't make sense. And the state of Colorado has made it, I don't know if they made it a law or a rule, but they changed all their prisons and nobody can be in solitary confinement for more than 3 days now, which is so what they need to do. But a lot of prisons, there's people that have been in solitary for 15, 20, 25
Oh
years.
my God.
And you just can't be a sane human being after that.
You can't. There's like no way. Because what
Mhm.
can you even read in there? Like,
You can read, yeah, you can read and you can draw, but you can't have a conversation with someone.
yeah, that is just
Mhm.
it. I mean, that really has to be revamped everywhere, right?
I
Because like
think
I
so.
said, a life sentence is already punishment enough. I'm
It
not going
is.
anywhere, so let me be with the people and do a
Yes,
little
that's
something.
right.
It's like
That's right.
crazy. All right, so now you're out, you're free. You did your 2 years probation. Um, take us to the point where how you met your current husband.
Yeah. So I received a job offer, which was really surprising, from this guy who had a business in Boston. And he read the article in the Wall Street Journal and he invited me to come to Boston to build a website for him. And so I thought it would be a great opportunity because in Kansas City, everybody knew who I was. So if I'd go out to eat, people would be pointing at me.
Mm.
So I decided going to Boston would be a good idea. And I went to Boston and I met this guy named Chris, who was my boss's best friend. They grew up together in Maine on a blueberry farm. And I worked with Chris every day. We had desks that faced each other. So we, got to be good friends. And one day he said he was going to go to Portland, Maine to visit Oscar, who was one of their construction workers who'd gotten picked up for being drunk. And he said, I need to write to him and see what it's going to take to get him out of jail. And I said, well, do you know his inmate number? Because you really need to put his inmate number on his mail or he may not get it. And he said, Now, how would you know that? And I thought, oh, I opened a can and then I said, I'm not gonna hide this. So I just said, well, I did time myself. And he said, oh, interesting. And then he didn't say anything else. And the next day he came in and he said, we need to talk, because he'd gone home and did a Google search for me and got all these hits. And he said, we really need to talk. Now tell me all about this. And he just thought my story was fascinating. And so, Chris and I became really good friends. And then it turned out that the guy I went to work for was really kind of a shady character, and
Mhm.
he thought that he could have me there and he could make me do anything he wanted me to do, or he was going to call my probation officer and tell
Mm.
him I violated my parole and needed to go back to prison. And he and Chris kind of had a falling out, and he kicked Chris out of the business. And Chris was living in his boss's house, and he kicked him out of the house, kicked him out of the business. And Chris was just on his own with nowhere to go. And so I invited him to stay in my apartment because I had two beds.
Mhm.
And we got to be really good friends. Well, I ended up uh, quitting my job in Boston because my boss found out Chris was living there, and he told me if I didn't kick Chris out that he was going to call my probation officer. And I said, I quit. I just quit. And
Yeah.
so I had to go back home to Kansas, and Chris came with me, and we rented a two-bedroom house together, and we thought we'd, help each other get on our feet. And then things progressed and we ended up getting married. So, and it's been great. Yeah.
Yes,
So I always
congratulations on
say, thank you. I
that.
say, Chris is the keel to my boat because he keeps me on a straight path. Otherwise, I get emotional about stuff. And I'm Chris's anchor because I gave him a home and security and
Oh.
stability. And so together, the two of us are unsinkable.
Oh,
That's
that's
the way to look
beautiful.
at it. Yeah.
Beautiful. So
Yeah.
how long have y'all been married now?
13 years.
Oh, nice.
Hmm.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's amazing. So see everybody, yes, a happy ending to this. Yes,
Yes, it
yes,
is
yes, yes,
definitely a
yes.
happy ending. That's right. Yeah, and Chris
So
is still my rock. He just helps me and supports me through everything. So,
it's great to have that support. Yes,
mhm.
very nice. So I do believe, because now I'm mixing things up because I watched the movie, but I listened to the audible of your book.
Yes,
So, but John reached out to you.
he did. About 4 or 5 years after Chris and I were married, a reporter called me and said that he'd been talking to John, and John wanted my phone number, and would it be okay if he gave it to him? And Chris said, yeah, tell him yes, because I think you two do need to talk. And I'd like to meet John myself. So we started talking on the phone. And that by that time, Kansas had traded John to a prison in New Hampshire. So prisons, if they have somebody they don't want, they trade him to another prison. They take one of their
Mhm.
inmates and send their inmate they don't want away. So John was in a prison in New Hampshire. And Chris grew up in Maine, and we were driving back to Maine to visit Chris's boyhood town and all his friends. And John said, well, New Hampshire's right next to Maine. You guys should stop and visit. And I said, John, nobody's going to let me visit you. I helped you escape from prison. He said, well, you never know. Fill out the visiting forms. And he mailed me two of them, and we filled them out, and they came back approved.
Oh my
So
God.
on our way to Maine, we stopped in New Hampshire and visited John for 2 hours, and Chris got to meet him in person. And finally, we got to have that closure where we could, share with each other what happened to us when we were separated. And then I finally got to say goodbye.
Yeah, that's good. First
Mhm.
of all, I'm shocked that it
Yeah,
got approved. It's
me
like, how
too.
did that
I was
happen?
stunned. Uh-huh.
It's probably all designed by God Himself
I
to like
think
give you that
so.
closure. And you know what? God bless your husband to
Yes.
have that understanding to say,
Mhm.
"Hey, Toby, I want you to get this closure. We'll
Yes.
go there together."
Mhm.
He's amazing. Like, where did he
Yes, he
drop
is.
from? Like,
I think he did, because not a lot of men would have done that.
no, not at all.
So, yeah,
Yeah,
he's just amazing.
he is
And he'll
definitely
tell
amazing.
me, John and I email once in a while now. We don't talk on the phone anymore, but we do email on occasion. And Chris will say, so what's going on with John? And I'd say, something. He'd say, send him $25 so he can get some books to read. And, or, something like that. So, we
That's
try to be
really, yeah,
friends to John.
yes. Somebody said Chris is a saint. Yes,
Yes,
he
he
is.
is. Yes, he is. Uh-huh.
Tell Chris we said so. Yes, Chris has a beautiful understanding of
Yes,
all of
he
this.
does.
Yes,
He
he
does.
does. Yes, he
Mhm.
really does. Yep. Okay, and everybody's loving hearing your story. So I'm so glad you came. So yes, you got that closure with John. When you got to see him, did he seem like he was okay?
He did seem like he was okay. He had gotten older, his hair was starting to gray, and he seemed a little wiser, and it was really good. And I think he gets frustrated. Now he's in a prison in Arizona, and it's a pretty tough place to be, he says.
Mm.
But I think he gets a little frustrated and feels like, he really does have no hope of having a real life. And I think that is something that's hard to deal with.
I'm sure, I'm positive it is. You
Mhm.
want to hear something funny? Somebody said, "Does Chris have a brother?"
No, Chris is an only child.
All right, ladies, that's it. Chris is the only child.
Yes.
We have no hope. So yes. And wait, let me see what Miss Gigi said. God moved that stumbling block out of the way for you to be with this godly man.
Yes,
Love Price for how he supports you.
that's
Yeah,
right. And you know what?
totally.
Here's a funny thing that goes right along with that story.
Mhm.
Chris told me that he was married before, and after he and his first wife got divorced, Chris cried for 13 years because
Mm.
he missed his wife. He wanted to be married. He wanted to be in a relationship. And he told his mother, you know, there's no one for me. There's no one in this world for me. I'll never find anyone else. And his mom said, "Oh, Chris, there's the perfect woman out there for you, but you just have to be patient because you don't know what God's putting her through to prepare her for you."
Mm.
So I told Chris, okay, so going to prison was your fault, I guess. It was all your fault because you prayed for me.
Oh my God, that's
Yeah,
funny.
yeah,
Yes, Chris is amazing, and
yes,
I'm
he
so glad
is.
you're doing well. Don't forget, everyone, you can purchase the book. There's several ways you can get it. Get on Amazon, get on Audible. But right now, we're going to take a moment because this forward really touched my heart. There's a lot of things in the book that really it connected with me. There's parts in the book that I will say you're going to get a little teary eyed because I did.
Mhm.
I don't want to give everything away because I really feel like you got to get this book. You got to get this book. But if you don't mind at this moment, Toby, if you want to read that forward
Sure.
to us.
Yeah. So the foreword was written by Dana, my friend Dana. She's now a friend, but she was a reporter that actually covered my story. And now she's a talk radio show host. And I was grateful that she was agreed to write the foreword for my book. And here it is. The afternoon I first heard the name Toby Young, she was already long gone. It was February of 2006, and I was working as a young television news anchor and reporter at the CBS affiliate in Kansas City. We'd just gotten word that a wife and mother named Toby might be involved in one of the most bizarre prison breaks in corrections history. Authorities hastily called a news conference and explained that Young, a prison volunteer with no criminal record whatsoever, may have smuggled a prisoner out of the Lansing Correctional Facility in a dog crate. I remember thinking two things. She looks like a librarian, and she must be nuts. Over my now 27-year career in broadcast journalism, I have covered it all: murder, tornadoes, bank robberies, explosions, and fires. As a nightside reporter, I had a front row seat to all the whoppers: the woman who faked the birth of sextuplets, the elderly man who robbed a bank to finance an RV for his new girlfriend, the evil pharmacist who watered down life saving chemotherapy drugs for the love of money. But for years, when people asked me about the craziest story I'd ever covered, I would always reply, "Oh, that's easy. It was the dog crate lady." And I would still answer the same question the same way if it weren't for an article I came across a couple of years ago updating everyone about Toby's journey. She had served her time and was out of prison. I remember the moment so clearly. At that point in my career, I'd moved on from the horrible hours and rigors of television news and landed my dream job as a daily news talk show host at Kansas City's Heritage KMBZ FM radio station. The new format allowed me to tap into my years of experience covering the news, but with the freedom to talk openly with listeners about countless issues affecting our community. As I read the article detailing Toby's release, I had three rapid fire thoughts. One, holy shit, she's out. Two, Toby has grown older, but she looks wiser, more confident. Three, and most importantly, I wonder if she'll talk to me. Toby did agree to sit down with me, and I am eternally grateful for the lessons she has taught me. I asked her all of the things our community wanted to know. She answered those questions and more. Our meetings grew into a friendship. If you'd told me back in February of 2006 that I would one day write a foreword to a book by the global headline grabbing dog crate lady, I would have said you were nuts. I can still see myself standing at the base of the long driveway where Toby once lived. A no trespassing sign warned reporters and everyone else to keep away from the property, and looking at a home she'd just left behind. I remember thinking, who is this woman? Who flees a house and a husband and two grown kids for a convicted murderer? You will find the answer to that question and so many others in the pages ahead. Toby shares her life story in unflinching, raw, and brutal honesty. She owns her choices and she owns the devastation her choices have caused others. But she is also a daily reminder that none of us is as bad as our worst mistake. And she has taught me this: no one is just a headline. For that, Toby, I thank you. I would like to think we are both older and wiser than we were when our paths first crossed on February 12, 2006, when I stood at the foot of your driveway and the FBI had just announced that a manhunt was underway. I wondered where you had gone. Turns out you and John Maynard were already long gone, but your real story was just beginning. Dana Wright, journalist and talk show host on Dana and Parks, KMBZ FM.
Thank you for that.
You're
And
welcome.
Dana wrote some beautiful words
She
right there.
did.
Yes, she did. I mean, amazing. And listen, no one is just a headline, right?
That's right.
Yes, everybody, I think the thing that I really want everybody to get from your story is redemption, right?
That's
You
right.
can recover. Life goes on. And don't let people keep you in your past or keep you where you made your worst mistake, right?
That's right.
That's where they want to stay. You let them stay there, but I'm not that person anymore. This is
That's
who I
right.
am now.
That's right.
Yes.
You know,
So
and
I'm just, yeah, go
I,
ahead.
I tell women that we, or anyone really, we need to escape our prisons, and we all have them. Some of us are in physical prisons, and if that's the case, then you need to find a way to escape spiritually. And if you are in a spiritual prison, you need to find a way to do something different in your life and make a change in your physical life so that you can escape that prison too.
Yes. So Nancy, you said I need that book now. I'm gonna give you this book. So I'm gonna I didn't know how I was gonna quite give it away.
Uh-huh.
But Nancy, you I'll put my email information in the chat there. You get in touch with me, send me an email, and I'm gonna send you this book. Yes, because I think everybody, like we said, the book is not expensive at all. I really want y'all to support, especially support the sisterhood. Support the fact that you know what, change can happen
Mhm.
and you can recover from mistake, right? So Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Audible, because listen, you can listen like while you're driving, while you're cleaning your house, if
That's
you get it
right.
on Audible. And
Mhm.
Obi herself has read this book for Audible. So it's a great story, guys. And I'm telling you, I was crying. Yes, it can it be
Yes.
ordered on Amazon? Yes.
Yes, it
Oh,
can.
in
Mhm.
Saint she says she's in Saint Lucia.
I
So
think it
yes.
can. I think it can be ordered anywhere from Amazon.
Okay, yes. It can be ordered anywhere from Amazon. And Feds, if you can't figure it out, email me because I'm gonna help you figure this out. We're gonna get these books sold here. Yes. Okay,
Yes, that's
Debbie, you're gonna
awesome.
be buying them.
Yay,
Thank you,
thank you.
Debbie.
Yeah.
Yes. Um so Diva, please give us the title of the book. So Toby, say the title of the book again.
It's Living with Conviction. So
Yes.
there's, yeah. And my website is tobydor.com, and there's links on there to buy it on Amazon too. So you can find
Yes.
it pretty
And
easily.
if one of my mods, if you can do me a favor, and put the link in there from Amazon for this book, put the link in the chat and I'll get it. I think I put it in the description, but if not, I will update the description to put all the information there. So, you were brave. You told your
Thank you.
story. Yes.
Yes.
You wrote this book and,
Mhm.
just overall, like, how are you doing now?
You know, I'm doing pretty good. It's been since the book launched, and it's really put myself out there, and most of the responses I've gotten have been positive, and that's been exciting. But there have been a few people who are just appalled that I wrote a book, and I still struggle with not letting those people get me down. It's been a great ride. I've loved it. I've done a lot of interviews, and I'm really excited to get my message out there. And I can't wait to see what happens in the next year. So,
Yeah. I think though also I forgot again where it was mentioned at, but there were some females, right, that came after you that kind of either fell in love with someone that was in prison or kind of something like a
yes,
similar
yes.
story, right?
So in 2015, Joyce Mitchell in New York helped two murderers escape from prison. She didn't go with them, but she was going to, and she changed her mind at the last minute. But they did get out. And actually, when that happened, I realized that's what compelled me to actively pursue telling my story, to reach out to help women. Because if I felt like if someone would have reached out to me before the escape, and maybe if someone would have, Joyce Mitchell would have heard someone other else's story before she was involved in an escape, maybe they wouldn't have happened. Maybe we would have been able to reach people. And then just yeah, that's it, perfect, the link there. Just a couple of months ago, Vicky White helped an inmate escape in Atlanta, and I was really following that story, and I was so looking forward to being able to help Vicky White when they got arrested and try to help her through her journey. But um, Vicky White chose a different path, and it just broke my heart, and I cried for days.
Yeah, I'm thinking I know the path now because somebody wrote was not, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you know what? First of all, when it's not a headline, right? And sometimes
Mhm.
when people know a situation that happened, between us, like we may get embarrassed, we may be a little bit ashamed. But
Mhm.
imagine when the world knows
That's
like what
right.
you did,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a whole nother level.
It is. It
It's a
is.
whole nother level,
Mhm.
and it's like a whole nother lot to get through. And then if you don't have people supporting you, it makes it even worse.
Yes, it
So
does.
yeah, it really does. So I want to say this to everybody too. Um, I know it's sometimes hard, but if you have a family member or a friend that, maybe has done something and they find themselves in prison or in jail, you know what? Consider giving them a little break, right?
Write
Consider
them a letter. Those
it,
letters save lives. And I'm not kidding. The letter doesn't even have, it can be two sentences, and you stick in a crossword puzzle for them to work. That saves lives, just that little bit. And it takes 5 minutes or less of your day.
they will thank you. Yes. So write
Mhm.
them a letter. We also here donate books. Okay. I get why
Yes,
they don't need you can't donate hardcover books
that's
because it could
right.
be a situation.
That's right.
So
That's
yes.
right. But they will take paperbacks. So,
Okay. And
yeah.
do they have to be a certain like can it be any type of paperback book, romantic, anything?
Yes, yes. As far as I know. Now, when you take them up to a jail and they donate them, they may have some that they don't accept, and then I think they'll just, donate them to a thrift store or something. But just donate any paperbacks and let the jail decide what they'll take and what they won't.
Okay, guys, so we're getting good information there.
Mhm.
Support your friends. You could just write a letter, 2 sentences. It kind of cheers them up and keeps them in good
Yes.
spirits.
Hmm.
Yes, and pray for them. Prayer always works.
Yes.
Donate your paperback books. And what else do we want to say? What would you like to tell the world, Toby, about living your best life?
Uh, I think that it's so important for us to do everything that we do with conviction. You have to believe in what you're doing. You have to find your purpose, and then you have to not let anybody stop you. You just have to go out there and live your life with conviction and tell your story, because you never know who might hear your story and how many lives it could change.
I love that. I love that. And so, what I would like to say to everybody is, you know what? Tell your own story. Don't be afraid to share your story. Never stay stuck at your one mistake, because you
Mhm.
can recover. And there's life after your mistake.
There
There's life.
absolutely is. And oftentimes I would say that your life can be even more beautiful after you've made a mistake, because it's those dark valleys where we really find the character that we have inside of us. Nobody ever grows when times are beautiful and perfect. You grow when the times are hard. And so you always come out stronger on the other side.
I wholeheartedly believe that. Listen, Toby, you are amazing.
Thank
I
you.
could
I've
speak
so
to you
enjoyed it.
forever. I could
Yes.
speak forever. Like, this was an amazing, amazing night. And I'm so glad you decided to come to Chronicles of the Gray Hair Diva to share your story, because I know it's not easy. And I would say to you, you know what? Forget about the naysayers, because
Hmm.
everyone else, we're here, we understand. And listen, matters of the heart. I want to say that, right? People would say, like, they would love to say, like, no, not me, not ever. But the
Hmm.
thing is, none of us have control over who we fall in love with, how we respond to love. And
That's true.
you never know what you're really going to do unless you are presented in that moment. So
Hmm.
anything could happen. But guys, get the book, okay? I have it. I love it. Nancy, you're going to get this copy. Everyone else, go to Amazon, go online. I'm telling you, you're going to love this story. And like I said, have the tissue box near you.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I'm so glad that you love the book, because I love it too.
Yes. And listen, so what did we mention that you started writing this while you was away?
Started writing in prison. I filled a bunch of journals in prison, about 25 journals I filled while I was in prison. And then I got out and I started putting it together into a book. I've actually been working on this book for 15 years. But what happened is I had to be healed enough to tell the real story. And so
Mm,
just like 4 months ago, I completely rewrote the book because I was
wow.
ready to tell the story now. So,
Wow. And I'm
yeah,
glad you waited then. I'm
yes.
glad you waited until you was ready to tell the real story and really
Mhm.
share with us. It touched my heart. It touched my soul. And on that note, guys, I want to thank all of y'all for coming through. Thank all of y'all for supporting Toby. And Toby, major big thank you to you.
Thank
We love
you.
your husband, Chris. We love
Yes,
him.
he's awesome. I'll share it with him. Yeah, he's pretty awesome.
He is awesome. He's amazing. And anytime you want to speak to me, you know how to reach me.
Yes,
Again,
I'd love
thank you
that.
so much.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I
Thank
wish you all
you.
the best with your book, too.
Thank you so much. I really
All right.
appreciate it. I've loved
Take
being
care.
here. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. All right, guys. Thank you so much. And we'll see y'all next time. Don't forget to hit the like button. Thanks. Bye.